Cesario Chavez, Champion of Workers by Tyler Schumacher. Childhood. Cesario Estrada Chavez was born March 31st, 1927, into a loving and hardworking family. As the second of 6 children, Chavez was very close to his family. He helped in the family's grocery store and on their farm in Yuma, Arizona. Chavez's parents were patient and understanding. His mother, Juana, taught him to be kind to all people. She also taught him never to use violence. His father, Librardo, taught him all about animals and farming. Chavez had a Mexican heritage. His grandfather had come to the United States from Mexico to start a better life. Chavez's mother was also born in Mexico. The Chavez family spoke Spanish at home. Chavez's parents, Librardo and Juana, at a rally in Calexico, California in the 1970s. School and work. Chavez's early life was divided between school and farm work. Early each morning, he fed the family's animals and gathered eggs. When his chores were finished, he went to school. Chavez did not like school. Teachers punished him for speaking Spanish. They didn't respect his Mexican heritage. Fact: a teacher shortened Cesario Chavez's name to Cesar when he started school. The nickname stuck for the rest of his life. Mexican students in the United States were not allowed to speak Spanish. Yuma, Arizona in the 1930s. Losing the farm. The Great Depression from 1929 to 1939 spread through the United States during the 1930s. Businesses closed and many people lost their jobs. Chavez's family had to sell their store and farm. In 1938, the family moved to California to find work. Quote, "On your own farm, you can work humane hours, but you can't work for somebody else. But you can't when you work for somebody else." Cesar Chavez. Farm workers. In California, Chavez's family moved from town to town looking for work. Chavez learned that life as a migrant worker was not easy. Most fields had no bathrooms or drinking water. Owners paid workers barely enough money to buy food. One-room shacks or tents were the only homes they could afford. But the workers had no choice but to live in these poor conditions. Owners would not listen to them or help them. Migrant workers often lived in run-down communities called barrios. Hard work. Chavez's family picked crops such as lettuce and sugar beets. They spent whole days bent over in the fields. Their backs hurt. Migrant workers bent over all day picking crops. Many had back pain their whole lives. The Chavez children worked in the fields with their parents. After 8th grade, Chavez quit school to work in the fields full time. He was never able to attend high school. Librardo's lesson. There were no laws to protect farm workers' pay. Owners could lower wages if they wanted. Chavez's father, Librardo, wouldn't work for owners who cheated people out of money. If an owner began cheating workers, Librardo stopped picking. He would strike with other workers. Librardo taught Chavez to stand up for what he believed in. Fact: Chavez's family had to move often to find work. Chavez attended more than 30 schools before he finally graduated from the 8th grade. Helen Fabuela. As a teenager, Chavez met a young girl named Helen Fabuela. Fabuela was also from a family of farm workers. She had quit school to make money for her family. Chavez visited Fabuela at the grocery store where she worked. In 1948, the two were married. Over the next 10 years, they had 8 children. Chavez and his wife both worked in the fields. They knew how hard life was for farm workers. The couple wanted to help. Together, they taught many farm workers to read and write. They also helped many people from Mexico become U.S. citizens. Quote, "It's ironic that those who till the soil, cultivate the harvest, the fruits, vegetables, and other foods that fill your tables with abundance have nothing left for themselves." Cesar Chavez. Chavez and his wife Helen in the 1970s. That is the end of part one of our reading. At this time, you need to do your Cornell notes and you need to take the quick check. Part two, serving the people. In 1952, Chavez took a job with a community service organization in San Jose, California. The CSO taught Mexican Americans about their rights. While working for the CSO, Chavez learned how to organize people. He learned ways to form groups and how to run events. He found he was very good at leading people. Starting a union. Chavez knew conditions for farm workers were not getting any better. Thousands of migrant workers were looking for jobs in California. Some migrants were willing to work for any pay, even very low wages. Farm owners took advantage of these workers. Workers picked crops all day for only a few dollars. Chavez worked hard for the rights of Mexican American laborers. Chavez believed farm owners were unfair to workers. He felt workers needed to form a union to protect their rights. He believed a union could change farm workers' lives. Chavez decided to quit his job at CSO to form a union. Chavez wanted to form a union that would make owners change their ways, but he needed to find a place to start. Many workers picked grapes in Delano, California. Farm owners were paid workers Farm owners there paid workers some of the lowest wages in California. Chavez decided to move his family and start the union in Delano. Quote, being of service is not enough. You must become a servant of the people. Cesar Chavez. Chavez stands in front of the Delano Bell mosaic, a gift from the Transport and General Workers Union of Great Britain. Chavez had to answer a lot of questions from farm workers to convince them to form a union. Some workers were scared that owners would not hire them if they joined. Chavez told them a union could make owners treat them better. Because Chavez had worked in the fields, workers believed he understood their problems. Many workers joined Chavez. In 1962, they started the National Farm Workers Association. Fact: Chavez believed anything was possible with hard work. His favorite saying was, "Si se puede," which meant yes, it can be done. The grape strike. In 1965, grape farm owners in Delano lowered workers' wages. The NFWA stood up to the owners by going on strike. The union members refused to work until owners gave them better wages and working conditions. The owners would not listen. Chavez decided to ask the government for help. With about 100 members, he marched 300 miles to Sacramento. Although the governor did not respond, the march was a success. It brought the workers' needs to the public's attention. The union used this attention to ask Americans to boycott the grapes. The boycott caused many owners to lose money. Fact: during the Great Boycott, as many as 17 million Americans stopped eating grapes. A nonviolent fight. Farm owners were not happy that their grapes weren't being picked or sold, but instead of talking with the union, owners got angry. Some owners hired people to attack union members. Cesar Chavez marched in picket lines with other union members during the grape strike. Chavez believed arguments should be settled without violence. To remind the union to stay peaceful, Chavez started a fast. Chavez did not eat for 25 days. He became very weak. Other members had to work together to keep the union going. Chavez's fast succeeded in bringing peace to the union. Victory for workers. After 5 long years, the grape strike ended. The boycott had hurt the owners. To stop the boycott, several owners agreed to improve wages and working conditions. Victory did not come without cost. During the strike, workers didn't earn wages. Chavez said about 95% of the workers lost their homes and cars. Chavez was very weak during his fast. He needed help walking even short distances. Quote, because we have suffered, and we are not afraid to suffer in order to survive, we are ready to give up everything, even our lives, in our struggle for justice. Cesar Chavez. More work to do. During the 5-year grape strike, the NFWA went through some changes. In 1966, a union called the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee was trying to help Filipino farm workers. The AWOC had gone on strike in Delano too. In order to help all migrant workers, the two unions joined together. They became known as the United Farm Workers. Chavez was chosen to lead the new union. In the 1970s, with the UFW behind him, Chavez again asked California's government for help. In 1975, he got it. The legislature passed the Agricultural Labor Relations Act, guaranteeing farm workers the right to organize into unions. The United Farm Workers celebrated their success. While Chavez was their leader, the UFW signed many contracts with farm owners. Chavez asked Americans to boycott grapes again in the 1980s to fight the use of pesticides. Pesticides. During the 1980s, Chavez tried to change the use of pesticides on crops. These chemicals could make farm workers sick. In 1988, he fasted for 36 days to protest the use of pesticides. Many people asked the government to make pesticides against the law. The government made harmful pesticides illegal. Chavez on the job. Chavez did have some problems of his own. Sometimes he would argue with people. Some people complained he was too bossy. Chavez's job wasn't easy. He didn't make much money, and he was often away from his family. Years of farm work made his back hurt, but he never stopped helping workers. Quote, nonviolence is hard work. It is willingness to sacrifice. It is the patience to win. Cesar Chavez. The union wasn't always successful. Sometimes Chavez got frustrated. Champion of workers. Chavez led his union for more than 30 years. He helped make life better for thousands of farm workers, but he never used violence to reach his goals. Even after he turned 60, Chavez continued to work, but his body slowly began to tire. During the night of April 23, 1993, Chavez died in his sleep. He was 66 years old. A real hero. Thousands of people came to Chavez's funeral. They marched in the hot California sun to pay their respects. Leaders from around the world sent messages. President Bill Clinton called Chavez a real hero. Quote, the fight is never about grapes or lettuce. It is always about people. Cesar Chavez. Members of the Chavez family, union workers, celebrities, and others marched to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Cesar Chavez's death. Quote, Cesar Chavez left our world better than he found it, and his legacy inspires us all. From the Presidential Medal of Freedom presentation. In 1994, Helen Chavez accepted the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her late husband. Living on. In 1994, President Clinton honored Chavez with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This award is the country's highest honor for good citizenship. Chavez was the second Mexican American to give this honor. People continue to remember and honor Cesar Chavez. Many cities have schools, parks, and libraries named after him. His face is on a U.S. postage stamp. But most important, the union he led continues to help farm workers have better lives. This is now the end of part 2. Please complete the Cornell notes and the quick check for part 2.